Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberkaş. Turkey and Greece have signed a letter of intent to join the German-led European Sky Shield Initiative, a system which aims to strengthen the continent's air and missile defense. The project will allow member states to make cost-effective purchases while pooling resources, which will include the German-made Iris-T and the US Patriot missile system. Turkiye and Greece attended the signing ceremony at last week's NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels. The Sky Shield initiative was formed in response to Russia's attack on Ukraine in 2022, which had raised concerns that Europe's air defense capabilities might be insufficient. But not all European countries are on board. France, which opposes the German-led air defense project, has instead called for a strategy that relies on systems developed within the continent. Turkey and Greece's bid to join the European Sky Shield comes as the two neighbors have seen relations vastly improve over the past year after a series of high-level meetings and visits. And now for more on the European Sky Shield initiative, joining me now from Brussels is Samuel Doveri-Westerbey. He is the managing director at the European Neighbourhood Council. And from Istanbul, Zuhal Mert Uzuner. She's an associate professor at Marmara University. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Samuel, what's at stake for both Turkey and Greece simultaneously signing up to the European Sky Shield initiative? I mean, is there any significance to their timing?
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of what the European Sky Shield initiative offers its members, first of all, it's a type of protection, right? So the project supports better harmonized or aligned or interoperable European air defense, which includes anti-ballistic missiles within a non-NATO and a non-EU framework. And so countries that are based in the eastern part of Europe or in the southeastern part of Europe geographically are more exposed to threat from Russia and the danger of aggression. And so there are some quite substantial and arguably alarming loopholes in the existing defense and ballistic missile protection infrastructure. And that's essentially what the European Sky Shield initiative offers Greece and Turkey, as well as the other members of this initiative.
So, Zuhal, how has the latest thaw in relations made that possible? I mean, are we likely to see less tensions over the Aegean and more cooperation between Athens and Ankara, especially when it comes to defense?
We know that Greece and Turkey has several problems, and it becomes difficult to keep it under control or a kind of manageable. The tension was not so possible. So we know that especially after the positive agenda, we had a kind of trend to decrease this tension or finding some, let's say, the solutions or a kind of process of confidence building process, but this initiative is very important for this the positive agenda, because we know that always the negotiations between Greece and Turkey was tightly related with military issues, and NATO played very important role for keeping the tension sometimes under manageable level. So that's why this initiative is beneficial for developing positive agenda.
So, Samuel, is this latest announcement a sort of rebuttal of recent comments by former US President Donald Trump, in which he criticized some NATO members? And what kind of a message was sent through this?
Well, as the other academic on the show just mentioned, the European Sky Shield initiative has many positive aspects that it offers. We spoke about, loopholes in air defense. There's also interoperability, cost effectiveness, sharing of intelligence and ammunition, which are all benefits to both Greece and Turkey as well as the other countries. But not everyone has that exact same understanding.
Yes.
Because there's, of course, the risk of US isolationism. There's also the risk of more rupture in relations with Israel. And of course, there is the risk of the European Union and other European countries like Turkey not having fully autonomous air defense and not having fully autonomous missile defense. And so it's important to mention that within the European Sky Shield Initiative, there are components in missile equipment and defense which are procured from the United States and from Israel. And of course, that it's some friction from some European countries. Not everyone has signed up to the European Sky Shield Initiative. And notably, one country is France, but there are also others like Poland, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Spain, Cyprus, Malta, the Balkans, and so forth. So I think that's the tricky part at the moment when it comes to European countries vis-a-vis this new initiative.
So, Zuhal, does this initiative fully render Turkey's Russian-made S400 missile defense systems irrelevant?
Actually, no. We can see that the S400s played very important role for having full control in the air zone of Turkey. So now there are some discussions about providing another, let's say, the missile system like Patriots in that process, which can be offered inside this European Sky Shield initiative. How it will progress, actually, we shall see it, but we know that there are discussions about what may happen to this S400s. There can be some solutions for existing disagreements about the existence of S400s in Turkey. But I think this is not so big barrier right now to overcome. There will be a kind of solution soon.
So, Samuel, you've just briefly mentioned some European countries, among them France, Italy, and Poland, are opposed to this initiative on the grounds that it will make Europe more dependent on foreign supplies. Is this really the case? And does it seem to you that Berlin is prioritizing the Arrow and not, for example, procuring Patriot systems?
Yeah, well, the longest range anti-ballistic missile system, the Arrow 3, as well as the THAAD, are Israeli and US equipment. And Germany has signed an agreement with Israel and also has procurement from the United States. And as a result, it naturally gravitates towards that, towards those procurement systems, also within this European Sky Shield initiative. Now, is it a reality that there's a lot of discussion, both in Turkey as well as in the European Union, about the need for strategic autonomy? Yes, absolutely. But the devil lay in the details. So what's the extent to which procurement should be more European or Turkish or more American or Israeli? That's essentially where the disagreements start, in those details of essentially contracts with defense. And I think there is a valid argument to some degree on both sides. Germany and a lot of the countries on the eastern and southeastern flank have noticed since the war in Ukraine that there are loopholes in their defense system, and there is problems of cost effectiveness, essentially, right?
But speaking of loopholes, I mean, are Arrows fully interoperable with NATO systems?
I mean, I think yes. I'm not fully qualified in order to give you an answer on the levels of interoperability. My understanding is that yes, and that the real issue becomes, in fact, the S400s, and in the case of Greece, the S300s, when it comes to full interoperability. But there are always ways to overcome some of these problems, as the other person on the show mentioned. And the major disagreement here at the moment is not about the interoperability of the Arrow or of the S300, S400. If it was that, it would have been blocked, which it wasn't. The real problem here is about purchasing of, for example, SAMT, which is an Italian-French defense system, which has also been in negotiations with Turkey in the past.
So, Zohar, we know that this initiative aims to bolster European air and missile defenses through joint acquisition of defense equipment and missiles from Europe. So where does that leave Turkey, which has become an important defense hardware exporter in the last decade?
We know that Turkey has a potential capability to support this process with the know-how and the defense industry. And especially we know that this European Sky Shield initiative is developed especially about the existing tension in Ukraine and Russia threat. And from that approach, we know that this technology, Turkish technology, is somehow proven in the war field. So Turkey may have an interest to support that process with its know-how and with this defense industry. But on the other side, we know that it is somehow connected with EU mechanisms, and some EU countries today have some disagreements about that process, because at the end it can be a kind of the profitable the relationship for Turkey. And we know that especially about this Greek-Turkish tensions, especially Cyprus question becomes very important issue there. And when we look at the contemporary discussions, especially from that aspect, we can see how much it can be a part of this questionable part of this the initiative.
So, Samuel, very shortly, what could you tell us about Turkey's position in supporting this initiative, which Israel is a partner with its Arrow 3 hypersonic missiles?
Well, I mean, what can I say? At the moment, Turkey has a very strong position vis-a-vis Israel, namely due to the atrocities which are taking place in Gaza. And more, the European Union is also tilting towards that position. France has been one of the early EU countries to have a very strong position in criticizing Israel on what's happening in Gaza. And so, in that sense, there is some suspicion that there might be some issues along the way when it comes to this Arrow 3 procurement, which indeed has Israeli technology and infrastructure. And I think it's also very briefly important to mention that the relationship between the EU and Turkey is very dependent on France.
Yes.
And the relationship with Central Asia and Caucasus, which is a very important strategy, both in Ankara and in Brussels at the moment, is again very dependent on France as well. So in some ways, it will be important that France and Turkey talk more and get along, whether it's in the ESSI or in other frameworks. That's up for debate.
Yes. All right, Samuel and Zuhal, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.